Well, good evening, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather, bringing you the latest long-range update here. A little bit quieter weather than what we have seen over the weekend. We don't have a ton of rain around. If we just switch it on radar here, what you see is, well, pretty much all clear. We had just a tiny little blip pop up there in Crawford County at one time, but then it's pretty much gone. In fact, I've got to zoom out and you got to go down here into Kentucky, way down to the southern part of Kentucky before you see much of anything going on, and that's pretty much the way it's going to be the rest of the night. You can expect not a whole lot going on. If I just take you back out here to the future radar, you notice some storms up to our north. I didn't have that view moved in here, but those fizzle out pretty quickly, and then you are left with really nothing going on the rest of the night around here. That's good because, well, we just don't really need anything. We've had a whole lot of rain here. In fact, I've had 48.25 inches of rain in total over the year here at the Southern Indiana Weather Office, and our normal is about 44 inches. So I'm already over for the entire year, and it's August. Oh my goodness. Plenty more to come, though. Unfortunately, I don't really see a major break in this pattern. I do see more active times ahead of us. As we just go ahead and take a look at future radar here, the high resolution NAM, you can see not a whole lot really going on during the overnight hours here as we go throughout the day. Tomorrow, though, maybe a few storms around the area, but they're going to be pretty spotty to isolated in nature. Nothing major rolling through here, one or two, and then that's about it. As we get into Saturday, though, that's going to change. Now, the future radar here is wanting to indicate possibly a couple of storms here on maybe on Saturday morning already, but the biggest amount of the storms are going to come a little bit later in the day, and that's going to come as a cold front rapidly approaches from the west. As we get into the heat of the day, those storms will fire along that cold front. Not everyone's going to get wet out of this. We'll go with maybe, say, probably a 70% chance or so out of this. But beyond that, these storms then roll through. There is a possibility that we could get a strong storm or two out of that. In fact, let me put a new tab and just show you this. I did not pull it up, but let me just show you the severe weather outlook for day 3 here, and it'll give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect. That there is a marginal risk of severe weather there in place for all of the area here on Saturday. Again, this is a very low risk. This is the lowest of the risks that you can get. I'll be honest with you, I think the odds of severe weather are pretty stacked against us on Saturday. We have a little bit of a small wind field up above, but it's not impressive. And with the clouds that we'll likely see on Saturday, honestly, the instability is probably not going to get out of control. So it can't, we can't rule out a rogue storm moving through the area and going severe, but the odds are kind of stacked against severe weather. Of course, it just depends. Now, if we get a little bit more of the sunshine than what we expect on Saturday, well, that could change things. So keep tuned to the forecast. But it does look like some stronger storms could roll through, but probably not severe. We're talking thunderstorms with maybe some vivid lightning and 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's really not all that bad, except that we've had a lot of rain, and of course that could still knock some weakened trees over with a lot of rain. So it's something that we will watch out for anyway. Now, the timing wise on this, you notice here we are. The high res NAM here wants to take it to about 8 o'clock that night before you start to see a lot of the things rolling through the area, and then it moves us out. Now, that is a little bit different than the lower resolution counterpart here. If I just put this into motion here, this is for you at about 2 o'clock, and this is the regular NAM, not the high resolution NAM, and then that has the rain a little bit closer to us. Moves it through here is 5 o'clock with some heavy rain in the area, and then it's moving it through about 3 to 4 hours faster than its high resolution counterpart. So there's still some timing differences. Right now, though, I would say it's not going to be an all-day washout. I would say the morning looks pretty good on Saturday. I think it's going to be as we head past 2 o'clock in the afternoon and through the evening hours. That's when your better time is going to be for the rains. And of course, the lower resolution is not going to see the finer details, so it paints it with a pretty broad brush. Here you see what looks like a lot of rain around the area, but if you go back here to the higher resolution NAM, it's probably going to look something closer to this where it's more of a broken line of storms. Higher resolution models like this tend to see the finer details a lot better, and so I would put a little bit more stock in it looking something like this. Again, a 70% chance of rain. That's a pretty good bet of rain, but not everyone will necessarily see rain out of this. And again, it's probably the later in the afternoon and evening hours before it comes. Now, this is all a result of another front that's moving in. The good news is this front is not going to be anything like what we saw this past weekend. Goodness, this past weekend that front approached the area and it stalled out in Illinois, and it stayed stalled out, and it just did not budge. In fact, it's still, and in fact, it was in the area for a good little while. It's not right now. It's pretty much just faded off of the map. It just could go nowhere, and it just sort of fizzled out of steam. What you notice, though, is this pretty fast moving front. Here's Friday morning as you wake up tomorrow morning. There's the front back to our north there around into Nebraska and Iowa here and on up. And as you go into the afternoon hours, it advances pretty good. Not a huge fast mover yet, but it's moving pretty good. By the time you wake up Saturday morning, there's the front out to our west, and it's making a pretty little clip there by the time you come in on Saturday evening. That's where the Weather Prediction Center here of the National Weather Service is saying that we should be by about 8 p.m. or so on Saturday night. Then as you wake up on Sunday, the front has already moved through the area, high pressure out to our west, pushing it out of the way pretty quick. You notice that over here we don't have a ridge of high pressure off to our east. That's what was slowing down and stalling out the front last weekend. We're not going to face that at all. It'll move through pretty quickly. In fact, as I go through this, you can see by the time you wake up on Monday, that's already along the coast and out of here, high pressure, large and in charge. And by the way, this is going to be just absolutely beautiful and refreshing as far as that goes for several days here. In fact, there you go on Tuesday and Wednesday. High pressure, large and in charge. Before we get into later in next week, the high retreats off to our east there, and you've got another front that advances that can bring some of those muggier conditions back with it. Let me go ahead and show you something here that I didn't have pulled up, but let me go over here to pivotalweather.com, which is one of the sites that I use for my model data. Some of you have asked in the past, where do you get your model data from? Actually, no, we want to stick here with the GFS because I want to go into the longer range here. Real quick, my apologies on this, folks. I should have already had this up, but I didn't. So let me go into here, and we will put this on to the Ohio Valley view here so we can zoom in on the region. And what I want to show you here is just the moisture in the atmosphere. And I tell you what, let me just go ahead and animate this, and this will give you a good idea of the refreshment that's going to come with this front. It's going to be just absolutely downright gorgeous, in my opinion. Here's where we are right now, and by the way, this is just a ton of water in the atmosphere whenever you get these kind of colors here. By the time we get into Saturday with that cold front approaching us, we're going to be back here into these deeper purple colors here. This is 2+ inches of available moisture in the atmosphere to rain out. That's just ridiculous tropical moisture. That's going to be insane. But watch the greens come here. The greens is much lower. This is less than an inch of moisture in the atmosphere. And basically, folks, what this is going to be is drier air on the move. Here's the cold front. All right, so here we are to about the idea here. There's 2 in the afternoon. If I were to go ahead and paint the cold front on, it would be right here. You draw it through the bottom of the lines right here. That's very rough with my mouse, but you kind of get the idea. You move this through, and there comes, watch the moisture go away literally with it, so that by the time that we get into the afternoon hours here on Sunday, things become very pleasant. The precipitable water just literally goes away and goes down pretty considerably with that. And it looks like we get a pretty nice break really for several days with this, where we get this gone before it starts to return next week. So I would say Sunday, a lot less muggy. Well, behind that cold front, you're going to really feel it on Monday and Tuesday. As you get into Wednesday, though, unfortunately, that's going to start to come back. It'll still be a pretty reasonable day on Wednesday. By the time you get into Wednesday evening and especially Thursday, that moisture level is going to come back with the advance of that next cold front, and that'll bring some more rain with it, unfortunately. Now, the good news is, if there is any good news out of this, temperature's still not going to be that bad. As you look here at the GFS ensembles, the raw numbers here over the next 16 days, really not that bad. Here it has the highest for Evansville at 86 degrees over here next Thursday. That's really not that bad. In fact, we get some very nice refreshment with this. Look at this temperature Sunday and Monday here in the 70s. Good chance that we might even make it into the 70s here on Tuesday as well. We will just have to see. But then it's low to mid 80s at best as we head out the rest of the month and open in September, that's not bad. That's very nice weather as far as what we are concerned for August. That's several degrees below normal where we should be. And then look at this too. You should note this: 58 degrees possible there Sunday night, Monday night into Tuesday morning. Upper 50s certainly would be in play there too if it's already bargain 60 there. So that's going to be some very refreshing air with a lot less muggy weather, something that we can absolutely certainly look forward to. We can take a look at your forecast. You can go to southernindianaweather.com, click on 10-day forecast. Sponsored by the Smile Center there in Huntingburg, and you can see there's that refreshing weather as we head into the weekend there, but much more pleasant weather next week with maybe some showers on Wednesday or Thursday as that front starts to advance, probably more on Thursday. A very low chance here on Wednesday, a better chance there on Thursday, and certainly on Friday as those front advances to us. All right, now of course you want the details for a little bit here as far as what's going on. Let's talk a little about the upper levels of the atmosphere just really quickly for the next couple of minutes here. Give you a picture way into the longer frame than just next week. So here's what we've got going on, and you notice we've got a pretty deep trough that's going to come over us over the weekend. That's what's going to bring that cooler weather with it. That trough is going to drag that pretty powerful cold front with it. There's that cold front as it comes through right there, and it drags that with it. Now we see an up and down pattern here into the mid levels of the atmosphere. The southeast ridge starts to build back in, so that'll warm us up as we head later into the next week, and that's of course, by the way, why you start to see the 86 or so begin to return in there. But you notice it does not last very long, and we start to go out of there again. Right, and we'll go back down here into an ebb and flow of more of that northwest flow again, which could bring, by the way, a very active weather pattern with it and more rain with it. Unfortunately, we'll have to see how that goes. But notice this little booger right over here. What's this? Some sort of a tropical system, the GFS. It's fantasy land this far out, but the tropics are certainly they're cooking enough to be active. If we widen out the view, here's where it comes. By later next week, what it wants to do is sort of develop this into a nice little tropical storm or hurricane or something. The good news is the modeling does recurve it out and does not make landfall. Catches it into the mean flow there of the jet stream and then just sort of moves it off after that. It is pure fantasy land at this point, but it is worth noting that it is hurricane season, and so that we've got certainly an active ocean temperatures out there that could make for an active ocean. In fact, we've already got one storm out there. Tropical storm Fiona is out there, but it's moving well away from the United States. You look at its spaghetti plots, its ensemble data here of forecast, and you see it recurves away from the United States. No worries with that. But whenever you look at the sea surface temperatures like this, what you see is that we are just cooking out here in the Atlantic Ocean. So right now, the Atlantic Ocean temperatures there prime for some storm development. That is certainly something that could happen there. Another thing I do want to point out just briefly too here is that La Nina is still developing out here. We haven't talked about this for a little while. It is having trouble getting going here. You've also got the warm waters here of the Gulf of Alaska here, but you notice they are weakening a little bit. You notice right about here you've got some cooler waters starting to invade here along the edges of the Pacific Northwest where we didn't have. If you look at the temperature change in the water over the past 7 days, you do see some cooling going on here, and you see some cooling right along the edge of Alaska here too, but you still got some very warm water. So that's the warm phase of the PDO, that positive warm PDO. That's one of the drivers for a cold winter that we have seen in recent years, and it's been there for the past several winters. It is starting to weaken though, but it's weakened before and then charged back up, so we'll have to see whether that really does it or not. You notice the La Nina down here as well too, but you also notice there's been a little bit of warming going on with this La Nina. It goes back and forth. If you look at the charts, you can just see sort of the up and down pattern. Right about here is 0.5 degrees, and that's the threshold for La Nina. You got to be below negative 0.5 in its value here for at least 3 consecutive months. And you see what you see with this is just sort of it goes down, back up, down a little bit, way back up, down, down. Who knows where it's going to go after this? If we look at what the model data is saying, the latest ICPC plumes, this is different models of what it thinks. Let me just draw La Nina on here again, and here's your threshold for La Nina. And what I want you to really just sort of see out of here is notice how many of these are saying that we don't even reach La Nina status. That's mitigated by the fact that there are a few down here who say we do reach La Nina status. So it's kind of mixed signal right now in the data. But you notice, you got to get down here and below this before you really start to get strong La Nina status. We never get to a strong La Nina. That's off the table. The question at this point is whether it's going to be a La Nada, which is what we call the nothing, just neutral conditions out there, or what just on the cool side of neutral, or are we going to get into an official La Nina status? It'll be a weak one at best if we do. The American models here suggesting, look at this, the latest ones are suggesting we never make it to La Nina status, that it just stays neutral and even starts to warm up a little bit here. There are some ensemble members that disagree, but the mean of all of these ensemble pictures here paints no La Nina in sight for us. That, of course, have a big impact for us as we head later on into the winter. And, of course, if you follow me, you know that I've already released my early winter thoughts. I released it back about a month ago now. If you just go to southernindianaweather.com and click on blog, you'll be able to get a lot of my blog posts that I do almost on a daily basis, folks, to keep you informed. One of them is my early winter forecast preview, and I went through a lot of these details, and you can sort of read through it, and I'll talk to you about the implications of La Nina and what that might do to us if we end up having no La Nina. That could end up making us a little bit cooler. Almanacs, by the way, will end with this, have already released their winter forecasts. Now take these with a grain of salt. I get asked about these every year, but again, keep these with a grain of salt. There's very little science that goes into these almanacs, and to prove that to you, just look at how radically different the forecasts are. The Farmer's Almanac is predicting numbing, cold, and snowy for us, and you notice. By the way, what's the scientific difference between ice cold, numbing cold, penetrating cold, freezing cold, and chilled to the bone? I can't really tell you what the scientific difference is. It's clickbait as far as just some descriptive words for it. I guess if you're already numb from being up here, if you go south, you're not going to mind the penetrating cold that much. I don't know. There's just no there's no real scientific explanation for this. It's sort of clickbait. The Farmer's Almanac is very notorious about that. By the way, they predicted that we would be frigid and snow-filled, was I think their words for us last year, and we all know that last winter was not frigid and snow-filled at all. We had about a week or two of really cold weather, and we had very little snow overall. El Nino took control, and their winter forecast was blown. So we take this with a grain of salt, especially when you look at the Farmer's Almanac. Different from this Farmer's Almanac. You look at the old Farmer's Almanac, where they're saying numbing cold and snowy for this. Look, they're saying mild and dry for us. So you take that with a grain of salt. Which one's going to be right? They're not both going to be right. They're polar opposite on the spectrums. Again, that's going to depend on what La Nina does too. That's something that we're going to have to figure out over the coming months. If La Nina does indeed take home and gets a little bit stronger than expected, the mild and dried will probably win out. If not, then the colder pattern may well win out. Well, we'll just have to see. A little bit too early at this point. I've released my winter thoughts, but keep it in mind, folks. These are just early thoughts right now, and as I say at the very end of that article, there's a video that goes with that. If you really want to watch and learn a little bit more about it, my winter forecast is going to be released in two parts in September and November. So again, it'll be late September before my early winter forecast is released. My final winter forecast not coming out until November. Still plenty of time to work out the details right now, and right now we are seeing just mixed signals in the data. So honestly, right now, it's sort of like taking a dart, throwing it at the board, and seeing what sticks at this point. Hopefully in a couple months, we'll have a little bit better handle on what La Nina is really going to do. That's one of the big pieces of the puzzle to kind of figure out what's going to go on for this winter. And right now, like I said, just some mixed signals. All right, so there's a little bit of science there for you, for those of you guys that like these longer form updates in regards to that. All right, folks, that is it for this update. I'm meteorologist Michael Wilhite for SouthernIndianaWeather.com. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you next time.